Man, our esteemed guest today is none other than Gian Galang. He's incredible. He's a beast. Makes work that's heavily textured and has a focus on capturing motion in the human figure, specifically with like athletes, fighters, people that do like action sports. I mean, anything where somebody's moving and they're putting their whole body into the sport. He just captures that essence perfectly. Once again, as always, drop your questions in the chat. Let me know what you guys think. I really appreciate you all for being here and for watching. But yeah, let's get things going. How's it going?
Doing good, man. Sort of long day, but doing
Yeah.
okay. How about you?
Yeah, doing the same, man. I'm feeling pretty good, pretty tired. Been a long day. Uh had an early morning after a late night, and so then a long day after that. But it's cool, that's how it is sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. Like that's a freelance life. Always
Yeah.
on deadlines and stuff.
Yep, everybody's like, "Oh, you get to make your own schedule," and it's like, "Yeah, that for better or for worse."
Yeah, I know. It's like the schedule means it's unlimited. Then there's nobody to stop you from doing more work, I guess.
Yeah. You're, like, always on, and at least for people who clock in and out of a specific job, it's like once you clock out, you can kinda mentally get away from it, but for here, it's like, "Man, I could be doing this, could be working on that."
Oh yeah, like you don't think I'm thinking about compositions while I'm laying in bed and stuff like that, you know? Like I feel like I'm always trying to get like a head start. So
Yes.
it just like starts invading every part of your life.
Yes. My notes app in the middle of the night, like right before I go to
Yeah,
sleep, I'll get some stuff and I just start typing on my phone. It's ridiculous. Like so many
yeah,
drafts,
yeah.
man. Yeah, man. I appreciate you so much for being on the show, man. It's an honor to have you.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited.
Yeah. Same here. I mean, my first question for you, honestly, is what should I know about your earliest context to better understand who I'm talking to right now?
Okay. Like art wise,
Just
or
in any form, whether it's like, your first introduction to how you started doing artwork, whether it's family values, environmental influences, anything.
well, I guess I've always been asked about my art origins. And I guess what I discovered was, one thing I'm surprised about is there's not a lot more people kind of went my route. Uh, and what I mean by that is kids that are like really obsessed with maybe martial arts and drawing and stuff. I mean, there's a fair share of people, but when I've talked about what I was into when I was a kid, I didn't think I was into anything out of the most popular things. Like the things that I was into was Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers, fighting games, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, and you could say they're like niche martial arts things, but they're kind of not. They're like the most popular things for
Mhm,
boys, you know,
mhm,
at that certain period of time. So I guess all the stuff I was into when I was a kid was kind of martial arts, pop culture based. Also I grew up in Hong Kong, so Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan were the most famous people, probably, in cinema and pop culture. Everything martial arts based was just pop culture, I guess, and that's what I thought was cool. So that kind of became the core of the subject matter that I focused on when I started doing my own artwork, and that's kind of what I locked onto as a freelancer, and I found more work in that avenue. And from there, I've kind of been branching out to adjacent avenues, more like in video games, sports, but always kind of in that action martial arts route, um, with dynamic figures, things like that. I
mhm.
guess that's kind of the core of type of artwork that I do.
Okay, like, I mean, I can understand that where you're, if you're a kid and you're like watching TV or you're playing these games or, just as a young boy and stuff like that, you're enjoying these different things. But what made you go the route of like, okay, let me pick up a pencil, let me pick up a paintbrush to to express this versus other avenues?
I'm not totally sure. I guess now that I look back at it, I do have so my grandpa was an architect and he had a wood shop when we were growing up. So we were always building stuff, random stuff in the backyard. I was helping them finish basements and do crown molding when I was a teenager, but we'd also have like wood projects. And then I actually have cousins and uncles who were artists and graphic designers. Maybe growing up, I was kind of more like a solo on my own kid.
Mm,
So I would always draw and I guess watch cartoons and stuff like that by myself. And that's kind of I guess that was kind of the thing that I like doing. I don't ever remember um, having some kind of influence that made me start drawing. I think it's just something that I always did, and then I just remember it was something that I was always pretty good at in school, and that was kind of my thing. So I just found out that that's kind of the same for a lot of pro artists. They were kind of like the drawing kid growing up, and that kind of fueled them a little bit.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's funny too, like the way I don't know if you ever had that in school where especially because you say that you were more of a loner kid. Maybe like all the kids were kind of letting you be to yourself, and then the second, there was like a group project or something, and somebody had to draw something. Everybody wants to be your
Yeah,
friend. All of a sudden, they're like, "Oh, that's the homie
yeah,
over there. Yeah, come over here with us." And it's like, no.
yeah. I mean, yeah, that was my thing. So yeah.
Mhm. Do you have any siblings?
Yeah, I have a younger brother, but I'm 8 years older than him, so it's
Okay.
kind of it's kind of like a longer gap, I guess. But yeah, he's in the creative industry as well. He's an editorial, so he's an editor at New York Magazine,
That's cool. So
more the writing.
you said more of the writing.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay. So man, and that's another cool thing about you too, the fact that you had artists around you growing up. And even if you don't remember like a direct influence, like were you able to get some sort of like if you were ever struggling with something creatively, like were you able to go to them and be like, "Yo, I'm trying to make orange or I'm trying to make teal. Can you help me mix these colors?" Or like, what do you think about this thing? Like, did you have that kind of early mentorship or like support system?
So not in that way, like drawing, but when I was a teenager and I guess yeah, maybe like older than 10, when I started working with my grandpa in the wood shop,
Mhm.
he would always be a source of uh problem solving. Maybe it wasn't necessarily painting and drawing, but when we'd be building random projects, he would always have a solution to it. And I think woodworking is a lot like painting and drawing because it's very tactile. It's very easy to solve, just to figure out how to solve things. As in, it's not like mathematically complex or scientific. Like if you need to figure out a way to um, cut out this angle in the wood or make a surface, like it's kind of like sculpting. We worked on a lot of cool things in college, and my grandpa would always have a cool solution. Because I guess it's something that you can approach like a piece of art, like if you're like whatever you're building. Like one winter, we had off of school for like 2 weeks because we had a blizzard, and I just wanted to build one of those Final Fantasy Buster swords. I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
"Look, can we build one of those? Can we build those?" Because we're just gonna shop all. He's like, "Okay." He's like, "Yeah, I guess so." And we're like, "Oh, like, can I make it out of metal?" And I don't think we can make it out of metal. He was like, "Maybe I can make it out of wood, and maybe we can wrap it in sheet metal." And he's like, "Okay, let's try doing that." So, he'd always be helping me do things like that. And so I guess my grandpa was kind of an enabler.
Mhm. for sure. And it's important sometimes too for especially like young creative kids to know that like it's possible, because a lot of people will, at least especially whenever it came to trying to be an artist, um, as a career, like just even as like a main focus, I feel like a lot of people would view it negatively. They're like, "Oh, you're gonna starve," or like, "Oh, don't get you like a real job or something like that." But it's cool that you were able to see like somebody actually doing something creative and like making things that make them happy and make you happy, like from so early.
Yeah, I definitely had a lot of friends that had I guess, the parents that pressured more on, being a doctor, being, you know, more like professional occupations. And, my parents definitely were like, oh, yeah, you could be a doctor, you could be a dentist or something like that. But uh, looking back, it wasn't super hardcore. They always encouraged me in whatever I was good at. So
Mm,
lucky for that. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Like, and sometimes people be having to fight the family to do what they want to do. It's wild, man. But
Yeah.
do you
Was that
have?
the same with you?
It was pretty like they were pretty much smooth with me, like with whatever I wanted to do. And I think it was because it's not that my drawings were super good at 8, 9, 10 years old, but they were like a lot better than an 8, 9, 10-year-olds would be. And so they're like, oh, like, let's just pour into this. And if he keeps going, he'll probably be somebody who can make something out of it, by the time he gets old enough to have to. And so they were always supporting me, just but I had like a bunch of detours as well. Like I did martial arts as well growing up, and I was a band
Yeah.
kid through high school, and I did basketball like as like in elementary school and middle school. So I had like a few little, you know, just explorations, but art was always that thing that, it was always first place. So when it
Definitely.
came to working your with your grandfather in the shop, I'm curious to know if you have any. Man, granddads are good about dropping good quotes. Like, and they don't even try. They're just like, they might just be telling you something and you're like, dang, that hits. And especially as you become like, as you get older, as you become an adult, they just get more and more right over time. And I'm curious to know if there's anything that has just been ringing true for you over the years.
Dang. Good quote. Man, wish I could think of something. I feel like it was more just like leading by example.
Mm, mhm,
Yeah, nothing really pops into my head, um, quote wise, but he just had a can-do attitude, I guess. Like there was this one time we were finishing this basement, our neighbor's basement in high school, and his eyesight started to go at the end, and he was cutting something on the table saw, and he almost sliced all his fingers off. Like he had to cut like on across his four fingers, right?
mhm,
And one of our neighbors was a nurse, so they were able to like tape it up real quick. But it was just like in a cast basically. And then we just went back to cutting the other day. The next day, he's like, "Okay, just help me out. I'll use my other hand." He cut his other hand. He was like a double miss. But then next day, we were just down there again, and he just like instructing me on how to do stuff. So like, he would always kind of like push forward. Sort of wasn't phased by things, and I guess always working to get the job done. I don't know.
yeah, by
Yeah,
any
I,
means
I
possible.
do. Yeah, I do wish there was a dope quote, but nothing comes to mind right now.
No, it's all good, all good. I mean, even that is the quote, it's just like almost losing all of your fingers and like, I'm still
Yeah,
at it.
yeah, 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 totally.
It's wild stuff. But okay, so So it sounds like your childhood was full of just creative work, and drawing, painting, shows. Were you specifically into video games as well?
I think just generally everything pop culture. So I lived in Hong Kong until I was 10,
Hmm.
and but my grandma lived in LA, and we would go visit, and my mother worked for the airlines, and so we would fly to LA every summer, and every summer that was like the highlight of my year because like in America, especially in the 90s, was so strong, compared to Hong Kong. Like in Hong Kong, we didn't really have cartoons or crazy cereal or Disneyland. It was just like, and every time I would come to LA for that one summer, I would just be like watching all the commercials. I'd be going to the comic book store. We'd be going to neighbors' houses playing video games. Um, so I feel like those times when I got fully immersed in pop culture were very strong and memorable for me. So yeah, I mean, I remember when I got my first Super Nintendo, and I only had Street Fighter for like the first couple of years. That's all I needed, and
Uh,
then, but yeah, now that I look at it, it's like, wasn't that just what everyone was? Every boy was into, just like comic book stuff, Batman, Spider-Man cartoons, Ninja Turtles. Like, I felt like it was just the main stuff back then.
mm, mm. So
So
then, definitely more of
90s.
a definitely Team Street Fighter over Tekken, huh?
Well, no, Tekken, yeah, Tekken later, but I guess Street Fighter was the first one. So yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
of course, I got into Tekken too. Yeah,
Were
but
you the
I never got
Mhm.
into those like super super high level. Like it's wild when, I was dope on my block. When people will come over, but then you realize the levels to the thing. Like, I remember when I got into college, um, there was this girl that was also in illustration, like, taking lessons, like training lessons for Tekken. So she was like, you know, she had training sessions basically to do for tournaments, and I was like, dang, that's like a real martial art. She's like training the combos, she's like doing reps on the combos and stuff, and like, wow, there's like, this is before online gaming, and then you're just like, wow, there's people that are really good, and then um I haven't really played video games for a while. I know there's always dope ones, and my little bro's always trying to get me into it. But I feel like my art is like my video game now. But I remember when I moved to New York, maybe like 10 or 15 years ago, Dragon Ball Z fighting game came out, and it was by the makers of Guilty Gear, and it just looked so dope. And I was like, oh,
Oh,
let me
yeah.
just jump on this. And it's 2D. It's like Street Fighter probably, but and so I tried playing. I played like 10 or 20 games online. I didn't beat a single guy. I was just like, dang, the level of these dudes online is really intense. It's not just like, me playing in my cul-de-sac and I just beat my friends coming over. So um
Yeah.
I feel like video games just totally passed me by. Like I also I tried playing Fortnite for a little bit because I've done some loading screens for them. I actually have a loading screen coming out,
Ooh.
because they commission artwork for their loading screens. I've done like 3 with them so far, and I have one coming out in maybe a month or so. But I tried playing Fortnite, and I was like, "Oh, this is like GoldenEye, right? This is like Halo," but
Mm, mm-mm.
it's just like a different level. It's a different level you haven't been playing. So, um, yeah.
Oh, man, that Fortnite is no joke, man. Cause not only do you be shooting, but then folks build and, like, they build fast. Like, you shoot somebody and then, like, a Airbnb pops up real quick, and you're like, "Yo, where did
Yeah.
they just pull that out of?" And, like, man, then even I feel you on the fighting games as well because, like, man, you'll be, uh I was really big on Tekken growing up, Tekken and Smash Brothers, and, like, man, it's one of them games that because they keep the same move set, like, year after year, it's like people just get nicer and nicer all like, just the whole time. Some people, like, never stop playing, and so Yeah, it's crazy. Those, like, tournaments and stuff, it's
Yeah.
impossible.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Totally.
Mhm. So then when did martial arts come into play? You said that you started off doing karate?
I subscribed to a bunch of magazines when I was a kid, like Wizard, Disney Adventures, and I had this Ninja Turtles magazine. And I remember they had this spread on like this karate school. It was like all these black belts, but they were kids, and there's
Mhm.
like breaking boards. So I was like, dang, that's what I got to do. I got to do karate. You know, I got like the Ninja Turtle skills. So I would always ask my mom when I was a kid. So when we finally moved to the U.S. when I was 10, there was a Chuck Norris karate school where I grew up in the U.S. in Stafford, Virginia, and so uh, that's where it started for me. And so I did karate until college. Then I was exposed to a lot more martial arts, and I started going in on Muay Thai. That was kind of like the best fit for me. It had like all the fun of striking, but it was more competitive. That's kind of what I've been doing ever since. I started doing BJJ recently. I totally suck at that, but um,
That
I
was
still do
tough.
kickboxing, and yeah, just for fun, just
Mhm.
stay in shape like that.
You know, for I'm an outsider from Muay Thai. I've never tried it, and I only ever see videos online of, like, people getting their legs kicked out, like, their leg goes, like, the other way, and that has always scared me from the artwork or not from the art form. Is
Yeah,
that like how often does that really happen? Like, do people just does that just happen? Because then what happened after dude gets his leg kicked out, he just pulls it back and is like, it's fine, like this is normal. And I'm like, yo, I don't know if I'm built for that.
the leg kick is that's definitely a big part of the sport. My theory is so a lot of leg breaks have happened right in the UFC and stuff. But I remember watching Muay Thai, and when you watch Thai fights in Thailand, you just don't see it happen. And I think it's maybe in the sport in Thailand, it's a lot. I think it has a lot to do with most of the guys are a lot smaller, and I think that maybe they don't break. First of all, I think they break their shins a lot more. Maybe they have like stronger bones. I don't know, but maybe because they're kind of smaller guys, like they're not breaking their legs all the time. But in the UFC, with what I've seen, like I think there's been like a 3 or 4 leg breaks already. Where you're just like, yeah, that's scary. You
Yeah.
don't think about that, when you're doing it, but yeah, it's
Mm.
freaky. It's so freaky to watch. God, yeah,
Yeah. I'm like, man, I've been wanting to try my hand at like maybe boxing or something since, but I do like to see Muay Thai fighters go at it, but then it's like there is that concern for my legs that I have like when it comes to actually trying it. But I didn't know if that was something that, like social media was just like blowing out of proportion because that's like a big hype moment or if that's like truly just a part of the sport.
yeah. I mean, a Muay Thai tournament. Yeah, I haven't seen a leg break like in real life or like at a Muay Thai tournament. Um, but yeah, I mean, I've seen it in the UFC.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think it's
Mm.
nasty. Yeah, but I
And
think what drew me to Muay Thai is it's like basically it was it's all the skills that you train with in karate, but it's like almost all competition and cardio.
mm,
I remember in karate, there's a lot of forms, like self defense things, and I love that Muay Thai was more like it's just like a sport. You're training combos on the pads, then you're training, then you're sparring with people, and you can do fights right away. So it's more like pure like that, as opposed to so yeah. Um, that's why I like it, and I like it as my cardio.
mhm. And you said that you tried your hand at Brazilian jiu-jitsu as well?
Yeah, I do BJJ here as well, but it's I mean, so that is a totally new thing. I mean, it's at least for me, it's so much more complicated. Like Muay Thai or like striking, boxing, you can kind of teach somebody like a 1-2 and a kick. They could start fighting pretty much. But with BJJ, it's like for one move, it's like step one, step two, put your leg here, put your leg here, and then that's like for one move, one
Mm,
situation, and then you gotta like know all the ways to do that move in that situation. And what if a guy does this and there's like a step one, step two, step three? So um, I can understand. Like I have a lot of friends who over COVID made a switch to just because that they were kind of forced out of the gym. They're just like, oh, let me try something different, and they totally love it. Um, so you know, I take both. So I go to a kickboxing school and BJJ, and I think it's just gonna be like a slow thing that I do a couple times a week, once or twice a week for like my whole life kind of thing.
mm.
You know.
You're gonna be one of those old men that's just like it's just crazy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's guys that are definitely, super hardcore. They're going every day, and like, like my friends are they're just YouTube algorithms, all different BJJ moves and stuff like that. And I'm definitely not there, but I like the idea of learning new stuff, you know, kind of as a workout. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So, how's your competitive spirit? Like for you to be playing games and to be in martial arts, like are you a pretty
Mhm.
competitive person?
So I think all my competitive stuff is like, you know, handled into my artwork. Like I said, I don't play video games. I think like my artwork is kind of my video games because every time my brother would start getting me into a game and I'd be like, well, I could spend a couple hours doing this, or I could be like, coming up with more concepts or something. So video games kind of. Although I do play Marvel Snap on my phone once when I'm like on the toilet or something. It's just like
Mm.
a card game. It's like
Oh, okay, yeah.
a Marvel. I was competitive in Muay Thai, maybe like 5 years ago. Um, but it's like that's something that you can't really. I mean, I don't think that it's just a lot. It's a lot to have. I think to be a freelance artist, especially like a painter and stuff, I feel like you really do have to be like what we were talking about, kind of like obsessed, like thinking about it all the time and stuff.
Mhm.
And then I think you kind of also have to be that if you're trying to fight. Like when I was fighting like and training to fight in Muay Thai, like I like training and working out every day, but just like once a day,
Mm,
because
mhm.
and it's a normal thing but when you're training to fight, it's like you're doing a couple times a day, and I'm just like always tired. It's like, and I feel like you're just always get ready for your first workout, and you got to shower, and then you're like cooling down, and then you got to watch what you eat, and then like I would get to my work and painting and stuff. But then already in a couple hours, you're kind of like psyching yourself up for the next workout. And then you got to go to the gym again and then shower and stuff like that. And so that was not really sustainable. It was good to have, I liked having like fight experience, and, it's cool it's like a good experience in my life, but I like the just working out once a day type thing. And, there's definitely dudes that are hardcore. I think most fighters full-time jobs and stuff like that. But I think there's just more guys that maybe it's the type of jobs they have is maybe it's more 9 to 5 type things, and they're still professional fighters. I think it's hard to be um, artists. Kind of your mind is so much into the work, like on the weekends, while they're sleeping and stuff. That's kind of a hard. I think you have to prioritize. Although there are a lot of creatives that are fighters as well. That's what I found. So
Really?
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, actually, like a lot of guys in my Muay Thai school are like designers or they work in video production, stuff like that. Yeah, yeah, I did
Interesting.
find that there's a lot of crossover.
Hmm. And speaking of, creativity and martial arts, I'm curious to know where the 2 overlap for you. So, most times with you being in those 2 different realms, you're able to see each craft in a way that, like, somebody who's only in one can't see all the way. And, I just wanted to know if there's any just similarities that you found, or maybe this thing about martial arts helps me with my artwork, or just even similar ways to look at, the same thing, you know?
Yeah, I think for me, maybe the similarities would just be kind of in the discipline, I think. I know that there's guys that are very creative strikers, as opposed to, non-creative, but yeah, I think maybe one of the reasons why is I think it's kind of challenging to be fighting and being a professional artist is because you spend a lot of time being disciplined, uh, preparing yourself to perform, I guess, like when you're preparing for a fight, you're like preparing your combos. You're preparing, what kind of food you're going to eat, what kind of workout regimen you're going to do, stuff like that. And I guess it's the same thing when you're a professional, illustrator. I guess you're preparing like, um, I guess yeah, the preparation. I think that's kind of the similarity that I think of, and not so much. I think martial arts is creative, but I think they're more as like a sport. I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Man, that preparation is key, especially in my experience when it comes to murals. The most time consuming part is sitting around trying to figure out what color this is gonna be, or how are we gonna get up to that corner, or, like, what paint are we gonna use now? And if you can have all those questions answered, you can go out and just do the mural, like, depending on the size, I mean, you can get it done quick, and
Yeah, I think that's
yeah.
that's a perfect example of preparing for a mural. That's the one where you have to get it done like in a very certain amount of time, like now. It's not like I guess when you get a freelance project, maybe you can fit it around in between other projects and to hit this deadline. It's like, yeah, because you're there for a specific amount of days and you have to execute. So yeah, I think that's perfect. That's a perfect, like, you're just doing all your homework, you're like, preparing all your materials, you're making sure that they have like a paint store over there that has all the swatches and stuff like that. Yeah, exactly.
So, okay, and when it comes to the development of your art career, can you walk me through some of the first moments that you started to get some traction, or to get some, um, I guess just like some footholds in this
Yeah.
journey?
Yeah, totally. It was because of the martial arts community or the MMA community online. I started out my career as an art director in advertising. I was at I worked as an art director in advertising, doing coming up with ideas for campaigns, art directing photo shoots, doing graphic design, stuff like that. And uh, I had a lot of fun, but I was always into drawing and painting, and I would always want to do my own drawing and painting stuff on the side. So when I was just so some of the things I would do for fun were like MMA posters or like MMA fan art, something like that. And I actually, my first one kind of went viral for me, at least, because I think the MMA community is still strong online, but at least when I started doing my artwork like in 2014, it was mostly online. Like now it's on ESPN and everything, but in the 2010s and stuff like that, uh, it wasn't super mainstream. And I think all the communities were like around MMA Reddit, MMA Twitter, and just like a few MMA sites. So when I made some artwork, like the first kind of painting I did was actually I did like a little digital illustration of all the UFC champions, um, but kind of like a Street Fighter artwork, one of those like almost collages of all the characters together.
Mm,
Um,
mhm.
I did it with MMA guys, and I kind of made the rounds. They kind of got picked up on MMA Tumblr, and then It got on Reddit and stuff. And so I did another one of one of my favorite fighters at the time, Mark Hunt, and it got to him somehow, and he made it his Facebook profile picture. And
Oh,
that was the first time where I was like, "Whoa!" And I like told bro and all my homies, I was like, "Dude, check out Mark Hunt's Facebook profile picture." And I think it happened really quick. After that, um, I s- I got hit up by Vice, who had a very popular MMA column at the time, Vice Fightland, and I just started doing editorial illustrations for them, and that's kind of where I was able to work out my style because uh, it was just there was no real briefs for those things. It was just I would paint a fighter that was going to fight soon or that they wanted to write an article about, and I would just experiment in different ways. And they were they were really good to me. They put my content like full full size on the Vice website and stuff like that, and I feel like I got a lot of heat from those works. Um, and then it just started kind of snowballing from there. Um, just all kinds of fight related work, and even today when I get um, commissions for different brands you know like um, Reebok or other brands that are not fight related. It's usually or like I got I got a commission for HBO and Game of Thrones a couple years ago, and
mm,
it's a lot of times it's the art director is an MMA fan and they know about my work uh, through that way. So
man, I
MMA
gotta.
community that
Oh,
yeah.
go ahead. My bad.
No, the MMA community's been really helpful for me and really helped my career.
Yeah, yeah, and it's oh man. So okay, I have a question, but before that, I wanted to ask when you were doing martial arts when you were younger, did you still see it as a way to just kind of like did you see it almost like a hobby or like a sport you could just do casually, or were you trying to kind of go further, um, like that?
No, not. I guess not really. I guess so. The focus when you're like 10 is I got to get to the next belt, or
Yeah.
I got to win this tournament. You know, so I really like that, but it wasn't kind of like I don't know if you're in another sport, maybe like you're in basketball or something, and you're like, oh, I got to make it to the end, then I can do college hoops, and then I can make the NBA. I don't think I was like, oh, I want to be like the ultimate fighter. Um, it was just something I did as a kid, and I don't think I ever thought about doing that professionally. Yeah, I never thought about it. Especially karate. It's like because there is no professional karate. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was just something I thought was cool. I liked doing it in high school.
Mhm. And okay, so then I asked that question because I interviewed someone before who wanted to be a pro surfer, and he ended up, I mean, he didn't make it to pro surfing, but he ended up being able to do artwork for like big surf festivals where pro surfers were. And it was cool that he was
Oh,
able to kind of interact with the same people in the same community that he would have gotten to, but he's doing it by way of his artwork. And I'm curious if you kind of feel that same sensation of like, I get to be around, I get to not necessarily be around them, but you get to do work for these same companies or kind of use these people as like muses and interact with this community, but just off the strength of my artwork.
oh yeah, it's awesome. Like I did a mural at the UFC headquarters last year,
Mhm.
and basically like role playing as a UFC fighter because like they were like, "You want to use the gym?" Like the UFC,
Oh,
PI performance
dang.
institute where they like and I was like eating in the cafeteria and there's like, oh, there's Wei Li, like the women's champion. She's like get in line getting something, and I was just like, oh yeah, cool. And then I'm like walking around, I'm like sitting in the lounge, and I'm like, oh, there's Forrest Griffin. So I was like, oh, this is like what it's like to be a UFC fighter, kind
Oh
of.
man.
Um, so yeah, I mean, Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, it's not like as a kid, I was thinking about becoming a UFC fighter, but I'm just into the sport and I love art, and it just kind of put me in in some cool situations throughout the years. Yeah.
Yeah. And you just like it's just stuff like that, you would have never thought that like it would bring you back around like that, but it's just funny. It's
Yeah.
funny how life works like that. If you just keep at something.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Totally, man. I've gotten like so many cool like mo- like exactly what you're saying, like 360 moments. Like at my first gallery show, Shannon, like Bruce Lee's daughter and granddaughter came to my first show,
What?
because I had like a painting of Bruce Lee. Yeah, there was the connection. And I was just like, oh my god, it's insane. Because at that time I had done artwork for Criterion Collection's Bruce Lee set, and so I guess they kind of knew about me through there. And at my second show, Ernie Reyes Jr. came, who is the first Donatello, and he was also like Tino, like
That's
the pizza
crazy.
delivery guy in TMNT2. And I was just like, dude, I wanted to be you when I was a kid, man. So yeah, I definitely have had a lot of these like uh yeah, 360 moments.
And whenever you get there, do you have that imposter syndrome or like that I call them look at life moments where you're like, "Yo, what is life right now?" You almost kinda snap, like, you almost kinda it's almost like a meditation almost, like, you kinda just catch yourself in the moment of like, "Yo, what in the world is life right now?" Like, who I'm standing in front of Bruce Lee's daughter. This is crazy.
Dude, all the time. I feel like especially because as an artist, I feel like 95% of my life is just here, just by myself, making painting stuff. And especially when I find myself in these really public situations, like a gallery opening, or I'm at the UFC and stuff, and other people maybe know me because of my artwork or online, and they're really famous and stuff. It definitely feels like there's a disconnect. Like I'm like a regular guy in my basement, and you're like a famous person. But I feel like, yeah, I definitely had more imposter syndrome before, and I feel like nowadays I just kind of try not to think about that. Just kind of be in the moment. Um, yeah, and that's kind of what I think about the most now. Like if I'm preparing for a gallery opening and stuff, I'm just gonna be like, just don't overthink it. Just whoever comes or whatever, just like enjoy the moment. Uh, man, so one of the first like starstruck moments I had was when I was doing some painting for Reebok. So Reebok used to be the official outfitter of the UFC. So I would do a lot of for them. Uh, the UFC used to have this thing called the athletes retreat. Basically, they would have all the athletes come to like a hotel resort, and they would have lectures on business and performance and all that stuff. And basically, Reebok had me in the middle of the hotel just doing like live art, and I was just like on a high the whole day because basically there was nothing for the fighters to do in between their like seminars except for like look at me painting or like get free Reebok shoes. And
Mhm.
so like different guys would come up to me all day, and I was just like, all day I was like, oh my god. And I felt like that I feel like I could have I don't know, maybe enjoyed the moment a little bit more because that whole weekend was just a blur because I was just like so overhyped about um how many people were there, and I was like, oh my god, I just met this guy, I just met this guy, and um so I try to keep that in mind if I'm ever in that situation.
Yeah. Man, so were you able to like, over the course of all these encounters with, like, heroes and just famous people, have you made friends or deeper connections with any of these people, or was it just kinda like, "Oh my god," like, and then you're out?
It's usually that. It's usually that.
Mhm.
I DM with some guys, on IG sometimes, but like Stylebender was uh, he liked my work from before he was in the UFC. And then I was able to make a painting for him for that was also the UFC 281 poster. And we got to gift him the actual size painting. It was cool talking to him for a little bit. We were chopping up about Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, and stuff like that. But um, now I'm still like a lone wolf guy.
Mhm.
I've never been so much like the outgoing guy. So I have some friends that I DM with sometimes a little bit, but I'm not like training with any UFC fighters on like on a daily basis or anything like that. Yeah.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
what is what is that about the lone wolf kind of um play style you would say um that just works for you? What do you think?
I don't know, man. It's just my personality, I guess. I feel like, yeah, like one of my weaknesses is networking,
Mm,
stuff like that. Uh, and just yeah, I don't have too many friends. And it's funny because my wife doesn't have too many friends either, and we kind of are just like double lone wolves.
y'all are
So
cool together.
uh, yeah, we work good together, and I like hanging out with her. We pretty much do everything together. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, that's I don't know. It's not like I don't like people, but I'm just like just more low key, I guess. I like catching up with my art friends and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm just not super outgoing, which I guess that's definitely a good thing to work on, to be able to do. But I think it's more a personality, like a lone wolf personality.
Mhm.
It's like drawing, and I've always I just like working on stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's one of those things too where like with people, I mean, people can be a lot to deal with too. And it's not I don't ask to make it seem like it's a problem or a bad thing, but I mean, it is something where like dealing with other people's energy sometimes, depending on the person, it can be like, man, I'm not trying I'm not trying to deal with all that, man. It's nothing bad on them. I'm just like, you know where you're peaceful, you know where things are like cool and you'd rather just be here.
And I look back at it also because so advertising is um it's a big like, networking business. I would say it's actually pretty important. But I would always feel like I would always skip those events because I would just like working on the project more. Like, oh, I have more
Mhm,
time. Because like creative, it's just like a lot of times you work on the project until you run out of time. Because you're like, oh, maybe I could get a couple more sketches in. Maybe I could do something a little bit better. Or if I try a couple more colors, I could come up with a better combination. Then you just kind of run out of time. So I feel like I always had the mentality like, so instead of doing stuff, I'd be like, oh, but if I get to do a little bit more work over the weekend, and then maybe I could get like a better end product.
mhm.
So it's kind of like that's why I guess that's why I say it's like my video game. Working on my
Yeah.
project. I just like working on projects. I guess what I like to do.
Yeah, it sounds like you really like to push an idea, and there's times where like I'll procrastinate on a deadline and then I'll look up and I got like a day or two to do this whole piece. And then I get to like right before the deadline. I'm like, if I had like one more day, if I had like two more days or something, I could have made it way cooler. I have this better idea now where like it sounds like you're taking that time to get the most out of each idea.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to, but there are times where like we end up going to something like a gallery opening or friend's gallery opening or something, and you're like, you know what? I'm glad that I went because it was cool. Like getting up with these guys, and then you kind of get inspired by different things. And it's kind of good to get out of your head and talk to especially different kinds of creatives. I like talking to creatives like outside of art sometimes, like maybe in design or something like that. And um, like the way that they solve different issues. It's good to, I think, good to step out. Then you get more ammo for doing your own work. So I guess in a way, it's like another way of trying to like work on your own on the
Mhm.
project again.
Yeah. And speaking of your work, I think um one of the biggest things about your work that I admire is your ability to capture motion, but in a way that's like a lot of people will capture motion through exaggerated proportions or like either like curvy lines just because they have a naturally like your eye just follows like a specific type of rhythm. But I mean, I remember some of the first pieces that I've seen of yours, and it'll be like the images themselves will be very static and like strong and like like stiff almost. I kept thinking about it like how like those ancient like murals or like stained glass type feels where they kind of tell more in this single image. And man, I really want to know how you approach capturing motion, in still images.
Yeah. I mean, that's like the thing that I think about the most, maybe.
Mhm.
So, it's a lot of ways. Like, sometimes it'll be like, I told you I started out doing editorial illustrations with Vice, and I wouldn't really have too much of a brief except paint this fighter. And so at first, it was always experimenting with different paint techniques or applications. Like that's where I would experiment with different kinds of um, substrates. Like I did some of my early paintings on plastic because when I would go at it with a brush or something, it would give like a wet look, and I was like, "Oh, that looks kind of cool. It looks like it's already moving." I just do a line like that, and it looks like his arm's already moving. And then sometimes it would be combining multiple images. Like I would be sketching and I'd be like, oh, I like this pose. I like when he does this pose too. But it would be cool if I did like both of them at the same time. And then you kind of get the image of the whole sequence. So sometimes I'll approach it like that. A lot of it is, most of my work is composition based. I guess it's like my sketchbook is just full of different compositions, like arranging bodies in different forms to kind of create something exciting for me. Um, like maybe a combination of this pose and that pose creates something that looks kind of freaky, like a mutant or something. Like you wouldn't really see it like that if unless you juxtapose, a pose in this way and that way. I've been more into collage recently because you can take kind of static images, and then if you kind of chop it this way, and you don't include one part, and then you include just a piece of another pose, you kind of get a weird, something that feels weird, or it feels like it's moving already, just because of the way the two different things that you put together. I've also been found that juxtaposing different paint styles creates a sense of motion. So I could paint, like a very strong static um, pose, like you were saying, but maybe um, I will do like a paint pour, which feels very fluid, and I will use that as a texture, the background or something like that, or for another element or another figure, and just putting those two together gives a sense of motion. But yeah, like my favorites as a '90s kid, I feel like the comics that we grew up with were mostly like action art based, as opposed to um really good storylines. Like I can't really remember too many storylines of the comics that I read in the '90s, but what I do remember are like the badass splash pages where it's like you're just reading, you're just like going through X-Men, and there's just like tons of word bubbles, and you're just like, I don't know what's going on. And then it's just like a double page spread of like Wolverine fighting Omega Red, and it's like coming at you, and there's like full action and speed lines and stuff like that. And in that one image, it's just like, bam. That's kind of what I try to do. It's like that. I try to like, um, you know, put all these parts together so when you look at the image, just like as much impact as possible. That's what gets me excited.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have a similar interest in that from it's more so from reading like manga. I used to read a lot of Naruto, a lot of One Piece,
Yeah,
and like, there'd be those One Piece is good for those too. Like it'll be the full page spread of just like,
yeah,
especially like if they're about to beat like a boss they've been trying to beat for like the last 5 chapters, and this is like the final blow, and it's like 3 different perspectives, and they get all those big like impact frame, like the line work is all thick and stuff. And man, it's so cool being able to like, I guess, channel that kind of energy, into the work. Cause I don't know, I feel like in comics people will I think the people who are really into comics will like it, like dig deep into the details, but people just reading them will kind of go over it. But because of like the black and white nature of it, like whenever you add color to that same energy, it's like setting fire to to the whole thing.
yeah. I wish I read more manga growing up, but I have like, like the first issue of like a lot of mangas, and I can't get into reading comics anymore because I always go with audiobooks because way I can paint and listen at the same time. But uh I think maybe that's the reason why I feel like manga is more popular in the US than American comics because they've always kind of kept that storyline and fluidity of action and reader flow as a priority in manga.
Mhm.
And like what you're saying, like Naruto, you like read all the it's not just like overwhelming action every time. It'll be like a story that kind of leads up to something, and then when they need like a kick-ass panel, it'll really mean something. Um, yeah. So
Mhm. And when it comes to capturing motion, another thing that was so crazy about your work is the fact that you're getting this motion, but you're doing it by way of building up these really crazy textures. The way that you'll build them up to a point of it being like it'll look smooth, almost like a pebble. Like it'll be like smooth all overall, but then it's got all these different, you know, bits to it. And I read somewhere that you were pretty like inspired by a professor, George Brad,
yeah, George
and
Pratt.
oh, George Pratt. Okay.
Yeah,
And he said, you said that he taught you the art of mark making.
mark
And
making exactly.
could you expand on that a little bit for people who don't really know what that means?
Yeah, I mean it's exactly like what it sounds like, but just him approaching creating an image like mark making as opposed to drawing or painting, I feel like unlocks potential or the way that you because like before George Pratt, I would think about I'm gonna make like with what you're taught in high school or something. I'm gonna do a graphite drawing of this guy. So then you're like, I have my pencil, and then you do this, and there's like a very um, academic way that you will do it. Or I'm gonna do an oil painting. Okay, so I'm gonna start with like my bird sienna, and I'm gonna call, and you just have like there's just like this methodology already. But I was about making like kind of expressing an emotion, but he's an illustrator, so it's not like he would just do abstract stuff. So he would always be illustrating something, and which I've always loved illustration. So uh basically he was like you can approach making this image however you want, but you want to get the feeling across. So he would do a lot of things like, I think at the time he was doing a lot of war imagery. So he would always have like a kind of a lot of gritty textures, and he'd always want a feeling of like somberness or real heavy lights and darks and stuff like that. But he would have his composition right laid out, and then he would shoot like really good reference, and kind of design the reference, like designing the lights and darks and stuff. And then basically he would just do whatever to make that image. So instead of, and why that's so freeing is you are kind of using your mind to figure out what's the most important thing, as opposed to like going automatically to an academic approach. So like, let's say you're in high school and then the assignment is to do like a what do you call it, like a still life, right? And you have like an apple and all that stuff. Then you're like, okay, the way to do it is you're gonna do the burnt sienna, the midtones, and then you're gonna start do your highlights and stuff like that. But with George Pratt, he'd be like, this is the image, and you kind of do whatever you want to create the form. So you wouldn't just start like drawing the figure. You'd be like, oh, we want a real strong silhouette of this maybe soldier in the middle, and everything's going to focus around him. So he'd just like lay out what that shape is, with whatever, he'd just like fast. And then he'd kind of create the atmosphere around it, and he wouldn't like worry about what he's using. So it's like, if he had to create, maybe it's like a guy in a bunker, he would just like fill out the shape of the bunker, with maybe he'd use a pastel or something, because the shape of the bunker is just like black, around. So he would just fill it out. He would just make the mark. He wouldn't be like, okay, this is the bunker, so I'm going to start drawing like the door of the bunker, and then I'm going to draw this. He's like, what it is a black shape surrounding a figure. So he would create the black shape, create the figure. And because he wasn't kind of thinking about things so academically, you would get all these kind of spontaneous marks, which, adds energy and, visual interest, I guess. And then he'd kind of refine the things that he wanted to be more refined. So almost like he'd be like creating this image that would be created very fast, and then he would start honing in the things that you should be focused, that he'd want you to focus on, as opposed to like starting an image and being like, I'm going to draw this thing, and then I'm going to start over here, and then I'm going to draw the next thing. And then I think that way, the way that he worked would yield a lot more visual interest and really allow him to play with what he wants to be in focus, and what he would, what is more like a secondary visual. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's,
It's
I think that's kind of the best way I can explain it.
yeah, it sounds almost like, it sounds, the way I'll say it sounds like duh, but it's like he's creating it the way that your mind would create it if somebody were to
Yeah.
explain it to you. Like,
Yeah.
you kind of think of the general, and then as you start to describe specifics, you kind of sharpen those
Yeah.
things.
Oh yeah, and so as a result of that, it would really help you simplify your composition, and therefore make it stronger. So like he would have a lot of dope assignments where he'd be like, okay, we're doing figure drawing. You can only use 4 black strokes and 4 white strokes, and you're painting on toned paper. So
Dang.
because you only have 4, you're like, what's the most important line that I, and what's the most I can make out of one line? Use like a pastel, or like a thick, instead of like, you're like, okay, I'm going to draw this eyeball, and I'm going to go like this. You're like, well, if I only have 4 lines, let me see what I can do. And so you're like, try to just make the whole like torso or whatever. Boom, one, and then you're like, I got there's the second one, boom, and then maybe the next you're like thinking about what are the most important things, and you're like, well, I could draw like a finger, or maybe the shadow is the most important thing because that kind of grounds the whole thing. So then you'll use your last stroke on like the shadow, and then you'll pretty much have the building blocks of the image. You're like, oh, this is actually the most important stuff, and then you can elaborate.
Mhm.
I think it was genius to the things like that. I'm
Yeah,
very grateful for that. Yeah.
absolutely. I think that, I mean, that's so important to be able to capture what it is that you're trying to make, whether it's like a reference you're studying or you're actually just trying to communicate something that you're thinking about in your head. It's like, man, that just I'm having trouble finding the words to explain like how important that is because I feel like that's a subtlety that can kind of go over people's heads sometimes where it's like they might be focused on something so small or like people are like erasing the eye because it's not exactly like the other one or you get caught up in the little stuff when in reality like you could be doing those types of things later and like you really just want to get like the the gesture at least in the beginning.
I mean, and
You know?
of course, there's like different kinds of artists that work in all kinds of ways, but at least with the things that I like, which are kind of bold graphic action, it really works with the thing. It really his philosophy kind of lines up with the things that I'm into, because like there are artists who like cartoonists or something, where they'll just start with the line and then they'll start over here and they'll just build out a whole image and they'll be amazing, you know.
Mhm.
And that's just their way of doing it. But at least the way that George did it was something that really resonated with me. And I actually feel like I'm really my nature is more like the opposite, where I do want to like get details in every little thing, and sometimes I do feel myself too precious about little things, and I kind of just uh try to go back to his philosophy, and I kind of like zone into my like um OCD mentalities, and then I like zoom out. So I keep finding myself going in, then zooming out, going in and zooming out. And I find like when I can zoom out, um, I make like the bigger leaps and like the most effective marks. Like I feel like um, it's like very comfortable to get into a place where you're kind of like, well, at least for illustration, right? Where you're like rendering and you're like, this is very comfortable. Like, I know exactly what I'm doing, and I could now I just want to like turn something on and like spend a lot of time on this and that. And you're just not thinking so much as opposed to, I'm talking about like the whole composition, because it's like it takes more brain power, I feel. I mean, that in my head, like where you're kind of like you have to be considering the whole thing at once, where I'm like sometimes I'm just like, man, I just want to like shade this face for like an hour. So, and not like think about, I don't want to like have to think about stuff, but so I find myself like pulling in and out of that. But the
Mhm.
biggest thing he taught me, which is basically like an illustration staple, is like, so build the composition and solve all the problems like as small as possible. And then, if you want to noodle and stuff with the final, it's fine because you have all the building blocks like very small. So
You kind of put yourself in a position where like you're like you could call it done whenever you want at that point then. And it's just kind of
yeah,
like up to you as to how far you want to take it.
yeah,
Mm.
exactly. Yeah.
And whenever you're making your marks, I know I've seen some of the videos you put out. Like I've seen you use like rollers, sponges, spatulas. Um, are there any like unconventional tools that like what's like the craziest thing you've used to make a mark or like something you didn't think was good, but then you're like, oh, this is actually fire.
Oh well, I don't really use it too much, but um, when I first started getting commissioned for murals, uh, like I'd already been doing illustration, and I'm not like, I didn't come from like doing street art or anything. And my main focus was like, how do I translate my marks, like what I'm kind of known for into like a mural. So I was trying to I get a lot of gritty textures with rollers on like a painting, like or a paper. But I was like, how am I going to do this on a wall? So I had like a time where I would get like crumpled up aluminum foil and just like I just crumple it up and kind of like dip it in paint and just kind of use it like a stamp a little bit
Dang.
to get like kind of crazy it's like chunky textures. And I thought that was pretty satisfying. Another another thing I got from murals or from the streets was um making my paint surface giving my paint surface texture, because like the first time I painted on bricks and like a really messed up wall, I found that I could just go over it with like anything basically, like a big spatula or even a regular paintbrush, and I would kind of the amount of pressure I put on the wall would give me different textures, right? Because different parts would be raised and stuff like that. And so I thought that was like a little bonus, because it's not like you're normally I'm working on a very smooth surface and I'm trying to create different unexpected textures and stuff with the thing that I'm applying. But um for some of my artwork, I'll like lay down like weird like kind of at first I started using joint compound, which is the thing that you use to plaster up holes in your wall. And I would just like cover my canvas with like weird textures and then just like start painting on that, because I would just get like really unexpected textures. Um, so that's another thing that gives some unexpected results. I think that was another important thing that George Pratt taught me about was um, he would always like working with a brush or something that is too bigger than you think, because it just gives you a little bit more, like it forces you to have to kind of manipulate it a little bit more and give you like unexpected results, which can be good or bad. But um, I think for the type of thing that I like, I'd rather have more unexpected results and kind of have to hone it in than start with like a brush or something that's very small, and then I'm gonna just be making something that's very predictable, like basically like copying my sketch. I'd rather
Mhm.
like have something that's like a little bit unwieldy, and you're like, oh my god, well, I don't know if if this is going the right way, but then you'll be like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then because you have your sketch, you can still hone it in, but like go overboard a little bit, reel it back.
Sound like the Buster Sword.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, whenever you were starting this stuff, like, did you? I'm assuming, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you started doing those types of mark making after being introduced to your professor and him kind of like putting you on to that type of technique or that type of thinking. And so, what was it like, kind of getting your feet wet in that type of area? Like, were you making stuff and like did you ever just tear up piece and you're like, dang it, like why? Like, do you ever have any mistakes? You're like, oh, I just tore the whole piece up because I did something and I got this bad unexpected result, or like, how
Oh
easy or
yeah,
difficult was it for you to kind of get a hold on that?
yeah. So what would happen is I would just fix it digitally. So I would do a lot of experimenting for the Fightland stuff, because it was just like different fighter portraits. This one with colored pencil, and then maybe I'll do like a wash, and then if the painting turned out shitty, I would just be like, all right, I'll just fix it in Photoshop and just like make it, do digital stuff on top. I just like make it correct. But I definitely had a lot of experiments uh, in yeah, doing the Fightland stuff. Yeah, like where it was just a little, but I feel like I would always get really crazy textures. Like I would experiment with painting on weird surfaces, and like the plastic would peel and stuff like that. But I would always kind of have an essence of something good, and then I would just like make digital stuff around it to make it tight and like readable. I did a lot of experimenting with Vice.
Mhm. Okay, and one more question I have about your style is, do you have particular marks or particular tools that you use to communicate specific things? So, like, if you know you need to make something look fast or strong or heavy or delicate, do you have like, oh, I know I can use this type of thing, or I know I can do a paint pour here, I know I can use a sponge over there? And specifically with the background elements too, I know that you do a lot of like you'll have paints mixed together and then you'll make use of that. I think that's so cool because I'll have stuff like that in my palette and I'm like, dang, I don't know what to do with this, but this is so cool. Sometimes I might just like take a picture or whatever. But the fact that you put those
Yeah.
types of things to use is really just genius to me. But do you have any specific is there any subtle psychology that someone looking at your piece longer can break down?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of um like all of the above in that I guess depending on what I'm making the piece for, I'll go with certain things. But yeah, for sure, like when I would paint on non-porous substrates, I felt like immediately a sense of movement and speed because it's so easy to make things that look like water, basically. And what I'm talking about non-porous substrates is like plastic or like one time I was like painting on like a mirror or something where
Mm,
when you lay down a line, it's doesn't attach. It'll just like it'll create a different line. It'll just create something weird, but it just looks like water, kind of. It looks like so. But then it's hard to do a whole painting like that because then your whole painting looks like water. And so I've found I've really kind of jumped into collaging because I can put different techniques together. But yeah, I think painting with a roller, which is another thing I stole from George Pratt, really gives me a lot of control. I mean, I guess yeah, it's funny that that I would say that it gives me control, but it gives me a control to create chaos and um like solid forms because like in one mark you can make it you can make one mark really solid or you can just like make it wild. So um I usually I like using the roller because I can create that juxtaposition very quickly. Like if I want like an action point that's like really crazy, I want another part that is like more honed in where that will become the more of the focal point. When I use rollers, you can just get that. Whereas opposed to like if you were using a pencil, if you're just like drawing something with a pencil or a small brush, for you to get a variation is like very hard. Like for example, like if you like manga artists or something, right? They're just using like these pens, or I mean, some use more expressive brush. Actually, that's a good example. Like the manga artists that use like the more expressive brushes, I feel like it's probably easier for them to create that motion as opposed to like if you're using one pen and then like to create action or something different you have to like really do a lot. But whereas if you use like a crazy ass tool then you can get a lot with one mark. So
one thing that I really enjoy about your collaging too, you're able to break things down or like you assemble pieces, right? And because of that, a lot of people will do like the collages on like a single like uh like in one rectangle, like the one canvas. And so they're trying to go all out, but like they're also right next to this other thing that they have there. But the fact that you break down each piece, you're really able to push as far as you can, and then like you that capture it almost, and then you can take that and put it on. And
yeah.
I think that's so cool that you're able to like you're saying, paint with the different styles. Because I mean, even the types of the types of textures that you'll put in your background. It's like like it'd be almost impossible to get those while trying to maintain the other form unless you did that first. But then the form might not come out the way that it needed to because it's sitting on top of this other thing. So it's cool that you're able to like kind of maximize every part and then assemble them together.
Yeah, it's it is like a lot of work, but it's also like it's almost impossible to. I think what that does is yeah, like you said, it allows like full expression and allows you to like not have to be careful. So I get like maximum uh wild expression, I guess, and then by cutting it out, I'm like physically honing it in.
Yeah.
But there's guys that do different things like that, like, but maybe they'll do masks instead. But for me, I've always found just like cutting it out is easier. I mean, there's guys that have like laser cutters for stencils and stuff, so they could like, but which um, I've used stencils too, but I don't have like a laser cutter and stuff. But I feel like since a lot of my stuff is figure based, it's just like in my head, I'm just like, I will paint this thing and I'll just cut it out because it just makes sense for me. Just
Hmm.
easier. Yeah.
This works that way. In terms of your work, I know that you're somebody who is very focused and very, very diligent in like how you approach your process and like, like you show up every day, you show up consistently. Um, what are some sources of friction or maybe um areas where you've had to sacrifice in order to maintain the level of expertise that you have or reach the level that you're at?
Well, I think kind of like my lifestyle and um, just kind of it just goes with how I like to work, and also my wife and her personality. Like she's also kind of like good doing her own thing, and she likes to work a lot too. So I don't have a friction of like, oh, I have a partner who is like, oh, you never have time for me and stuff like that. Like she's always kind of
Mhm.
doing her own thing, and then when we're not working, we kind of like do everything else together. And so that's kind of like, um, you know, locks our relationship in. And then as far as and then I just don't have too many friends, so so I'm not like turning down all these things to like to make room for my art. It's just I just don't have too many things to go to, I guess.
Mhm.
But um yeah, I just don't really have I don't have any hobbies. You would say martial arts is my hobby, but I just like I work out every day, so it's something I do every day. And then the art is my hobby, and I do that every day. And then so like me and my wife go into the city every weekend, and the things we do in the city are kind of like, oh, we'll go to a gallery show, we'll check out this design exhibit, which just kind of feeds into my artwork as well. Kind of like my life is. I'm not. I don't feel like I'm sacrificing anything because I'm just not really into too many other things. Um,
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm kind of a boring dude, you know.
Man, I don't know if I agree, man. Like since we've been talking, I mean, there's so many interesting things that you've done and like that you do. But I understand the sentiment. I guess my question is more so on the lines of if somebody was trying to reach the level that you're at, or if somebody was trying to do what you want to do, but say they do have a lot of desires to do other things, or like, they want to be a professional, at your skill level, at your level of professionalism, but you know, maybe they don't see the full scope, or they don't know exactly how much work it takes, or what you have to be willing to give up to get there, you know. Um, is there anything that you could speak on that?
Well, I feel like the artistic talent, at least when it comes to visual art, the interest that you have, extreme interest. And I wouldn't even say it's work ethic, you know? I think it's just my talent is, and the talent of, I think, a lot of uh artists who are able to go professional is that they just like doing it more than other people. I could say I am disciplined and that I work every day and stuff like that, but I'm not disciplined in the stuff that I don't want to do. Like, I don't like doing laundry and stuff, and I'm not just like,
Mm.
so I just I just, but I really like making stuff. I feel like if your personality isn't like, yeah, so I would say that's like my blessing, and the people like a lot of the high level dudes that I know are kind of similar, like, but you know what? Everyone has their own strength, especially when it comes to visual arts. Like, I know a lot of guys who are definitely more outgoing and they're more into other stuff, and maybe their strength is in like the performance of their art. Not like it'll manifest itself uh in a different way. Like I like um kind of approaching my artwork like iterating, like from a design point of view. So I'm like doing lots of thumbnails, I'm doing lots of like colored things, but then I know guys that are like a lot of, especially for like street artists, like their thing is like they just like doing it, like not too much preparation, like going boom, throwing something up, and their style like manifests itself because of their personality. Man, it's hard to say. It's hard because I've listened to a lot of artists, um, like podcasts with artists and stuff that give a lot of advice, but I feel like a lot of times it's specific to the type of art you make because art is so it manifests itself in so many different ways at a professional level. Like there are
Mhm.
like performance artists that their thing is like showing up, throwing something up, like whether it's like spray paint or like doing something, and like that's their thing. That they're not into like you know experiment, making doing a very laborious process or whatever. Or um I think it's just different. I think the biggest advice I can give to um an artist or someone pursuing something creative is to follow what you're most interested in and kind of like double down on your tendencies and the way that you like to work, you know? Because I
Mm.
just know a lot of artists that work in so many different ways, and I wouldn't like prescribe. I wouldn't be like, okay, for you to be like a great artist, you got to like wake up every day, you got to work out, and then you spend like this much time doing like like there's a lot of podcasts that are like every day you got to do like 20 minutes in your sketchbook of like life drawing and stuff. But I like never do that. Like because I don't like doing that. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is doubling down and going into your creative interests.
Mm.
Yeah. I think
That's
that's
beautiful.
yeah, like I said, I think that's the gift. The gift is your extreme interest. Like you're more interested in this creative thing than most other people. And that's your like lucky thing. So you kind of I think if you recognize something like that, you just got to keep going in
Mm.
that direction.
That's so real though. Like to it's like it's just something that you really want. Like this is the thing you would do anyway. It's not like you're not eating spinach every day. You're like you're doing this because this is the ice cream. This is the cake that that you enjoy. And
Yeah.
mm, dang. And then being able to just um double down on the things that you enjoy. It will help like doing it'll help at least with the productivity because it's like you're just doing something fun every day. It's like you said, like art is your video game, like you're
Yeah.
going down and you this is the way that you relax, that you kick back you're making stuff. Are you familiar with um when Kobe Bryant talks about Goat Mountain?
Was about what? Sorry, you cut out a little bit.
When Kobe Bryant talks about Goat Mountain, talks about going up Goat Mountain.
No, is that like the greats of basketball or something?
Yeah, so he's like, yeah, sometimes I gotta go up Goat Mountain and I have to talk to all the goats and we discuss our obsession with the game. And
Yeah.
it's essentially just him going to ask the greats for advice whenever he's like dealing with stuff or if he's just trying to get a different perspective from like a high level. And I'm curious to know if you have a goat mountain in your craft and who would be on your goat mountain.
So the two artists that I I like really admire, and I feel like if I was them, I would be like, wow, I did a lot. And this is something I really um they've accomplished a lot of things that I would want to do. Is Tristan Eaton and James Jean. And
Mhm.
the reason why is they are not kind of locked into a specific art discipline, you know? Like Tristan, he's famous for a lot of things, like vinyl toys, his mural work, but he does commercial work, um, his gallery shows, kind of like creates his own projects, and he does it all. Same with James Jean, you know, he did comic book covers, he does movie posters, he makes his own paintings, and kind of I feel like that's the dream, like I know a lot of artists in different disciplines that are like very successful gallery guys, very successful commercial artists, very successful comic book artists. But I like I've been having fun doing, working on everything. Like I'm trying to break into sci-fi fantasy book covers, because
Mhm.
that's what I love listening to when I'm like having my sketch and everything locked in, and I can just start painting.
Mhm.
And that's just like something totally different. Like that literally, like fantasy art worlds is a totally different thing. But I love that these guys, that it's possible. Like they show that it's possible to have like a style and kind of make your style your brand, and be able to sort of make everything, not just be like, um, yeah, not just be like tied to one artistic discipline, I guess.
Mm. So true. And I mean, Tristan Eaton, man, that dude's on another level. After his work went to space, I was like, can't nobody tell him nothing. Can't nobody
Yeah,
tell him
man.
nothing.
He just like creates his own project. I mean, yeah, that's like I got a chance to go to his studio in LA, and it was just like you're like, dang, you're like, if I was him, I'd be like, nice. I'd be like, you did a good job, like that's yeah. Anyways,
I met Tristan Eaton once and he was super cool, super respectful, like just humble as like he has every reason to be cocky and like crazy, but he was like just a super chill guy. And like what was it like meeting him for you?
oh man. Well, first of all, it was kind of like the most starstruck I've been, actually, because he came to my one of my shows, just like showed up,
Oh.
like I didn't know he was coming. Yeah, I was just like, what the fuck? I was like, dude. I was like, my mom was there. I was like, mom, this is the real artist. I was like, this, like, I was like, dude, what are you doing here? Um, the yeah, it's like so cool, man. I like invited us to his studio, and exactly what you said, like super humble. But um he has a lot of things that he's really into, like uh art wise, like graphics, different kinds of painters, comic books. Um, it seems like he draws inspiration from a lot of interests, which is another reason why I can relate, and I look up to people like that. They're not kind of just locked into one specific artistic discipline. But yeah, I don't know what more I can say. I mean, I think it's also inspiring, like to be an artist of that caliber, or to see that an artist of that caliber is, um, you're kind of like um, inspiring and helping, artists coming up the path too. Um, I think it's really cool.
Absolutely. How about James Jean? Have you met him?
No, no, no.
No.
Um,
Man,
I would think
nobody's met
that
him.
maybe. What's up?
I was like,
Yeah,
nobody's met him. I don't know. Like everybody I asked, they're like, nah, he must be like a unicorn.
yeah. Maybe he's a lone wolf too.
Yeah. Yeah, his stuff is crazy. I've seen one of his prints before, and like, I'm like, yo, this is better than some people's originals, man. This is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, like the things that he really pioneered a lot of stuff in printmaking, and stuff that you wouldn't think of, like all those like embellishments and stuff. You've seen them on maybe book covers or you know different things, but you've never seen them like applied heavily at such a made for printmaking, making artist prints. So yeah, man, those guys, like I said, they're just like doing their own thing. I think that's awesome. They're just like creating
Absolutely.
their own stuff. Um, that
Mm.
that's a dream for them.
And you spoke about sci-fi fantasy being something you like to listen to in terms of the audiobooks. I'm just curious to know, have you read or listened to Will of the Many?
Yeah, that is who's the main characters in that?
His name is Viz.
Yeah, I think so. I forgot what the story is. What is that story?
It's
It's like who's the main character? So he's Viz, and then what is he a magician or something? I don't know.
no, so there's the the
Like
societies.
James Islington or
Yeah.
Islington?
Yep, yep, yep. And
Yeah.
he's basically in a society where like people give their will to people above them. Like there's like a class system. And like depending on what class you are, you get a certain amount of will, like strength and focus and like brain power and
Oh.
stuff from people below you. And so you got people who are higher up that are like they literally have like the strength of hundreds or thousands of people. And so like you have these high ranking officers that can throw trees and cars and stuff because they just have literally hundreds of
Oh.
people's strength.
No, that sounds awesome. I'm gonna listen to that because what I know that book because I can picture it in my head, the cover, but I feel like it seemed like something about politics. Because I feel like I don't know what the cover is, but I feel like the cover is maybe it looks like a courthouse or something.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
trying to
like
imagine
pillars and
in
stuff.
columns. Yeah, yeah. So I think I skipped it because it just seemed like I was like, man, I'm not trying to listen to like something about law or politics or something like that. But just that synopsis, I'm gonna listen to that next.
Yeah,
That's on a lot of lists. Yeah.
definitely check it out. It just gets crazy. I'm not gonna tell you anything about the story, but it just gets crazier and crazier. And it's a series. That's the first book. Second book I think comes out next month. And I mean, I'm hyped for it already. I read it about a year ago, but like the book
Okay.
is the truth.
So all right. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, I need a lot of that's what I'm always looking for, like newer audiobooks because I go through them so fast. But yeah, I haven't listened to that. So
Yeah.
that's next on my yeah.
Yeah, I can share a
Thank you.
couple more with you just later on. That's the kind of stuff I like to read as well, so I'll send them your way if I think it's interesting too.
Hell yeah. Okay. Yeah. I want that.
And
Cool.
um what does so say 5, 10 years go by and say I sit down and have another conversation with you, what what would you have done by then in a perfect world?
I think more of the same in that I would do bigger, but on a bigger scale, because I feel like I relate to James Jean and Kristen because I feel like I haven't done any, I'm not like nowhere near where they're at, but I've done everything that they've done basically. Like I'm actually doing my first comic book cover with Boom right now, and I've done murals. I have actually a mural project coming up this month, and I've had gallery shows. I have like big commercial projects, and just like I just want to do more, like more of that, more like more interesting projects, um, larger scale. Um, yeah, I do want to break into sci-fi fantasy book covers. I think that would be cool. Um, maybe movie posters or something like that. Um, I'm just excited about a lot of all kinds of um, yeah, and also maybe developing my own characters, I guess, that through gallery work and things like that. Like I guess my own like IP, you could say. Like for example, um, over the past couple of years, I had a bunch of wushu or like kung fu related artwork. It started with this mural that I was commissioned to do in Chinatown, and when I was coming up with a subject matter, I was like, oh, it'd be cool to do these wushu chicks because the forms are so amazing, and I just had a lot of projects that where I could like kind of create these characters, and so I kind of have like these wushu characters, and I really like having like my own. It's not like my own character, but it is like um, a series of characters that I've created multiple times, and it's not like a specific person. So it would be cool to develop more things like that. I guess you could call it IP or you know unique characters. I think that would be cool.
Yeah, yeah, I'm definitely
Yeah.
like right in that same feel of like wanting to bring certain characters that you have to just to kind of, I guess, show them off more consistently because especially if you can tie them with a specific feeling or narrative or message, I feel like people will relate to them. It's kind of like I peeped the Vegeta you have back there, and it's like there's a lot of symbols that come with Vegeta. It's like hard work, it's like determination, there's pride, and being able
Yeah.
to, you see something like that, and you're like, yeah, I love Vegeta, and like love everything he stands for. I'm gonna get it, and I think that people can have that same feeling, if you kind of bring the narrative to those characters as well.
Yeah. Yeah, Vegeta's like my work harder. It's like watching a work
Yeah, he's got
harder
his
dude.
arms crossed too. He's like, nah, that's not enough. Keep going.
Yeah.
That's what's up, man.
But
Um,
Cam, I think I gotta bounce in a bit. I think the Yankees game is coming to a close, and I got dad duty.
for sure, for sure. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, man. Is there anything that that you feel we've missed in the conversation? I feel like we've hit a lot of different places.
Um, man, I mean, yeah, you got me going deep on lots of things.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, shoot, man, we have a closing tradition on the podcast because it is the vertex, it is the point of connection. And I use this as an opportunity to extend you the opportunity to reach out to any person, place, or thing that you would like to connect with. So whether it's somebody, if you want to meet James Jean, or if you spoke about trying to get into sci-fi fantasy novels, or if you're just trying to reach somebody that you lost contact with, it's my hope that in posting this out, I can attempt to reach someone, and maybe the communities can connect each other. But it's just my opportunity to help you connect to anything you want to.
Yeah, a specific thing that would want to reach out to. I mean, I think it's just that realm. I think right now it would be dope to do like yeah, cool like sci-fi fantasy cover. I guess I was just like, when I was a kid, I was really into Warhammer. Um,
Mm-hmm.
those like figures that you would build and then you like kind of have a battle with it. I feel like that would be so sick to do artwork for that. So I guess
Okay.
just I'm putting my vibes out in that general entertainment, sci-fi fantasy direction, to do some badass work.
Oh man, I already know. Ooh, some Gears of War, some Warhammer. I know you will
Yeah,
go crazy with that. Ooh,
yeah, right.
gotta find it. Gotta find it. But But yeah, man, thank you so much for sitting here with us and just sharing your story, sharing your expertise. And man, it's been a pleasure getting to know you over the past 2 hours. And man, I wish you luck and success with everything that you do, man.
Dude, thanks so much. I mean, it's great talking to you, man. It's good. Like I said, I'm kind of a lone wolf, so I'm not like, I don't spend so much time like talking to a lot of people. But it was cool to connect with another artist, like yourself.
Man, thank you. And one more thing before we go, who would you be interested in seeing on the podcast in the future?
You know what? I would want to hear from like a pro, like sci-fi fantasy illustrator. Like I feel like I don't know anybody like that's like a current. Like I know the greats from the '80s and stuff like that.
Mhm,
But I feel like that would be cool to listen to a podcast about somebody that was like worked in that professionally, like nowadays. I
mhm,
know there's a lot of concept artists, but I think somebody that does like cover work would be kind of cool to hear
mhm.
from.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll look into it, man. I will see who I can reach out to. Well,
All right,
cool,
man.
man. Well, thank you once again, man. I'm not gonna hold you no longer. But yeah, it's been a pleasure, and you have a great rest of the night.
All right, thanks, Cam. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching the episode. One of my favorite things about doing this podcast is hearing about when someone resonates with something we said. It's truly the reason I continue to make these happen. Comment down below what stuck with you, and we can continue the discussion further. Also consider liking and subscribing. It helps me bring in more amazing creatives and helps me make this show better for you all every episode. Catch y'all next week.